Rioting erupted across this country yesterday. And in Kenosha, Wisconsin, it was the worst we have ever seen. A video shows a man, several people, with rifles blocking the road and ordering a sheriff's vehicle, armored personnel carrier, to retreat, to back up. The police then throw tear gas. This man with a rifle takes aim at the vehicle. We hear several shots ring out, but we don't see video of this man actually shooting, so we don't know for sure, but it may be the case. Violence may be getting worse. I think this is the worst we've seen. I think it's a dramatic escalation. And I think it's possible that this incident in Kenosha, where a man was shot in the back several times, could be George Floyd, a second George Floyd incident, which sparks mass nationwide riots. But let's talk about what the far left is doing. Shaun King said, "I'm not going to call for peace in Kenosha." What does this mean? He's not going to call for peace. I would actually say he's calling for violence, or at the very least, to be as fair as possible. Shaun King and other high-profile leftists are advocating for violence following this incident in Wisconsin. I'm going to read you what he said, and I want to show you some more information. We've got a decline in support for Black Lives Matter, according to Civics. We've got an increase in opposition, and we have a statement now from the district attorney in Portland as to why he's not charging these people and letting them go out and riot every day, citing their righteous anger. But here's what we need to say. Shaun King, he says, "I'm not calling for peace because of what happened to this guy, Jacob Blake." Well, Jacob Blake had an open warrant, or let me be careful. A man named Jacob Blake had an open warrant, lived at on that street where the shooting took place, an open warrant for third-degree felony sexual assault. There's another story about a man of the same age and name who drew a gun on innocent patrons of a bar. And he was, I believe, charged with illegally concealing a firearm. Police may have been responding to this information. Now, if you want to argue the police were still wrong to shoot him in the back several times, that's fine. This guy, Jake Blake, was resisting officers' demands as they followed him with their weapons trained on him. He opened his vehicle, tried to go inside, looked like he may have been grabbing something, and then the police fired several times into his back. He's still alive. But following this, Shaun King says, "Nah, I'm not going to call for peace. We tried peace for years. Y'all don't understand that language. We are calling for a complete dismantling of American policing. It's not broken. It was built to work this way, and mayhem is the consequence. You earned it." Now, is he directly coming out and saying that he wants everyone to go and get violent? Not necessarily, and that's probably on purpose. I think what we're seeing here is a semantic game where he wants to make sure he can fan the flames, make everything worse without actually saying, "Go get violent." In which case, people are going to see this and say, "Mayhem, you earned it. Dismantling the police, not peacefully." I think we understand exactly what that means. And we are seeing many other people join in. Steve Van Gundy, verified on Twitter, former NBA head coach for the Detroit Pistons and Orlando Magic and Miami Heat, current NBA analyst, says, as the back of Damian Lillard's jersey says, "How many more?" Below it is the number 0. The system does not need to be fixed. It needs to be torn down, and we need to build a true justice system. Torn down. So he wants to tear it down by force, not peacefully. I think we know where this is headed. And I think we know when we get the New York Times saying this progressive DA is going to release all of these people, many of them are being arrested, you should be prepared for what happens next. Now, it's no surprise that we're seeing opposition increase and support decrease for Black Lives Matter substantially as these riots continue. But I'm worried that what we're going to see following Kenosha will be like George Floyd round 2. Let's read this story for Breitbart. And then I want to talk to you, I might get to this, about the cities and the massive explosion in violence, serious violence, random crimes, murders. And people like Shaun King are saying, "Nah, no peace, no peace." Okay, no peace. In that case, I think you all better be prepared, because they are telling you to your face, "We don't want peace. We're going to tear it down." Videos posted on social media that appeared to capture the shooting in question shows 2 Kenosha police officers following a black man with their weapons drawn. This we know. There is no word yet as to whether there was a weapon in the car or if the officers involved feared there was a weapon. What followed is what we have seen in countless Democrat-run cities over the past months: rioting, arson, violence, what King accurately described as mayhem. Oh, And there was also looting, because nothing proves how down you are with the struggle than upgrading your home entertainment system. This is not the first time that King has endorsed violence. In June, King called for statues that portrayed Jesus as white to be torn down. He said, quote, "Yes, I think the statues of the white European they claim is Jesus should also come down. They are a form of white supremacy. Always have been," he tweeted, adding, "Tear them down. All murals and stained glass windows of white Jesus and his European mother and their white friends should also come down." They say it should be noted that depictions of Jesus as white are not a form of white supremacy. White supremacy. The Holy Mother, Mary, has appeared as part of many different cultures, African, Mexican, European, and so throughout the world. The Holy Family is depicted as Middle Eastern, Black, Hispanic, white, you name it. This isn't about race. It's about the universality of the faith. After King called for violence against the church, a wave of attacks against the church began. The acts of vandalism, including the beheading of statues and arson. Shaun King has called for this before. He has a very large platform. And while many people on the left drag him all the time for being a grifter or a con artist or whatever, there are many who listen to him. And it's likely, just like when he said to tear down the statues and target the stained glass windows, there was a wave of attacks on churches, specifically from Black Lives Matter activists, extremists, rioters, whatever you want to call it. I believe that he's telling people no peace, and they're going to listen. Will Twitter take action? Of course they won't. Of course they won't. We are now seeing high-profile individuals on YouTube, on regular social media, totally being radicalized and embracing fringe, far-left, white supremacist insanity. I mean, think about the story of Shaun King himself. Both his parents are white, yet he's claiming that he's black. Now, fine, by all means. He says, when he got called out for it, he claimed that his mom cheated on his dad or something like that. But here we have people who are avowed racists, and I mean it. That Robin DiAngelo says she's straight up uncomfortable around black people, and she is racist. And that's where they get their cues from. That's not a world I want to live in. But we can see Twitter allows it. Youth Alert says, "Stay strong, destroy fascism." The Pacific Northwest Youth Liberation Front has been organizing on Twitter the extremist riots we've seen throughout Portland. Kenosha lit the courthouse on fire, and they love it. They laugh about it, and Twitter doesn't do anything about it. It's allowed. I think we can see where this is going to go. In Portland, a prosecutor must decide which protesters should go to jail. Portland's new district attorney has refused to prosecute hundreds of low-level offenses tied to recent demonstrations against systemic racism and police brutality. Take a look at this. They say, just weeks after Trump's administration agreed to pull back federal officers from demonstrations in Portland, Oregon. You mean violent riots? I'm sick of the lies. I am sick of the lies. Every day from our media, we have videos of this. I watch them throw explosives, start fires, beat people. I watch it every single day. Going to residential neighborhoods, screaming in people's faces, and the New York Times demonstrations. Peaceful. The new prosecutor, Mike Schmidt, took office August 1st after defeating an experienced federal prosecutor by a 3-1 margin in Multnomah County, which includes most of Portland. Even as critics say, the breadth of his victory gave him a mandate to reshape prosecutions in Portland, a city of frequent protests, where there is no clear end in sight to demonstrations against police brutality. He has not been slow to shake things up. 10 days after taking office, Mr. Schmidt effectively dismissed charges against more than half of about 600 people arrested since the protests began at the end of May. His directive met with strong objections from the Portland Police and Multnomah County Sheriff, but it was in keeping with his progressive campaign platform as one of a new generation of prosecutors across the country who are pledging to reduce penalties for low-level nonviolent crimes. That's not what he said. He said, even if you assault an officer, he will consider the chaos of a protest environment. That's the game they play. The New York Times says over and over and over, protest, protest, protest. No matter how many fires they start, no matter how many people are dead, no matter how many buildings burnt down, protest. And now that they've changed the language, he says the chaos of a protest environment. No, a protest is when people block a street waving signs and the cops come in and shoo them away. Some people get arrested. When people show up with weapons and clubs and destroy property and smash windows and start fires and kill people, it's insurrection. It's a riot. That's what they do. Now that they've changed the language across the board in all of these news outlets, that's what you'll see. Oh, but they're just protests. So we're going to go easy on the protesters. Mr. Schmidt said his office would presumptively decline to prosecute demonstrators for minor offenses such as interfering with police, disorderly conduct, and trespassing, cases that did not involve deliberate violence, property damage, or theft. And charges for assault on an officer and resisting will now require closer scrutiny, with prosecutors taking into account in filing charges whether the police fired tear gas into crowds. That's right. He straight up said, you could literally assault a cop and he will cut you loose. You'll need more scrutiny. And what are we going to get? What will we get from this? More of the same. Absolutely. The purpose, Mr. Schmidt said, is to balance people's righteous anger and grief and fury over a system that has not really been responsive enough for decades and centuries, with the need to prevent property damage and violence. Well, I tell you what, you voted for this, Portland. Don't expect me to shed any tears for the people of Portland who voted for this. Now, as for the people who didn't vote for it and voted against it, now, for those people, yeah, I will absolutely stand up to defend them. Those who challenged this, voted against it, and said, no, we can't have this, and are now being forced to live under the boot of the extremists. Get out of these cities. In Wisconsin last night, armed individuals pointed guns at a sheriff's vehicle. The camera pans away. 3 shots ring out. It pans back. Somebody runs up to a guy who's aiming a rifle at the vehicle. We can only assume it was him, but maybe not. I'm going to operate under the assumption the extremists are coming out armed, giving orders to the police, and potentially shooting at them. It's only a matter of time they're going to residential neighborhoods. Will Donald Trump and the Republicans win? I don't know, but that is potentially the light at the end of the tunnel. Trump has vowed to hold these extremists accountable. The left won't do it. The Democrats won't do it. The media is lying about it. How do we stop it? These Republicans have kept saying things like, I'll vote. That's what I'll do. I'll vote. You'll vote. And meanwhile, every facet of our culture has been dominated by cultist extremists who believe a fringe, literal white supremacist ideology. I'm white supremacist. I am not exaggerating. They call themselves avowed racists. Republicans keep saying they'll vote. If Donald Trump wins, because people are tired of the lies, it won't change the fact that the New York Times is lying every single day, that the zealots, the cultists, have been taking over every aspect possible. Not all, but enough. Every major corporation now supporting the fringe cult. The New York Times lying about what's really going on to protect the extremists. Here's a quote. At a time when legitimacy in our criminal justice system is probably at an all-time low, we can't be seen to be using that very system to silence the speech that is being critical of it, he said. How do you design a policy with all those competing goals? That's really the line we tried to walk. Speech, he says. Speech, speech, speech. That's right. When they throw an explosive at a cop, speech. When they burn down a building with somebody inside, speech. That's what they did in Minnesota, Minneapolis. He said the strategy allowed him to put greater resources towards more serious cases, like the 15 homicides that made July the city's deadliest month in decades. The coronavirus crisis has also left courts able to handle fewer cases, and Mr. Schmidt faces pressure not to crowd the jail. There's been a pushback from law enforcement. Mr. Schmidt said Portland police leaders told him that they were concerned the directive would lead to more police injuries. Though he said nothing prevented officers from making lawful arrests they deemed necessary. The Portland Police Chief, Chuck Lavelle, said the force will continue to do the job the community expects of us. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, man. What we're likely going to see is businesses already destroyed completely. There was a story recently about a vintage toy shop. During the riots, people broke in and stole vintage toys that cannot be replaced. They can't. They don't make them anymore. It's a vintage toy shop. This guy's a collector. He hunts these things down and then he sells them at a premium. They were stolen. He'll never get them back. There's no company to call to get them back. Was that about justice? No. It's about a complete breakdown in civil order. That's what the left wants. That's what Shaun King is saying. Completely dismantle the system. Then this NBA guy, tear it down. They're talking about using force against you. Unfortunately, I think too many people are just going to say, I'll vote. I don't know what you do, but I think the first thing you do and the most powerful thing is speaking. Voting, definitely, by all means, please go vote. But speaking up every day, challenging this. Not engaging them, okay? You know, the people who go out and start fights, the media will use that against you. But speaking up is the most important thing you can do. Just say no. This is insane. No, absolutely not. And here's what happens. So I'll tell you what, man. People are not blind to this, okay? I don't want to leave this on a major negative, okay? I'm going to leave this potentially a major positive. I like showing this civics poll. It's a national Black Lives Matter poll of registered voters. 150,251 responses. Take a look at this. When the George Floyd riots started lighting up, opposition to Black Lives Matter started increasing and support started dramatically decreasing. Today, we are seeing another drop-off. Support is now below majority. Still, support for Black Lives Matter is the plurality. The largest group of people polled support Black Lives Matter, but 38% oppose and 12% neither support nor oppose, with 2% unsure. Here's the good news. The more these riots go on, the more opposition we see. And that means regular people are paying attention. Not all of them, but enough. There are a lot of people who aren't paying attention. But as support drops, that means people are saying, whoa, wait a minute, what's this? I didn't want this. The violence has got to stop. It's not stopping. It's going to get worse. And these elected officials who are getting in and embracing this and allowing this, and Twitter, they're allowing this. They may be signing their own warrant. I'll keep the rhetoric chilled. They may be signing their own, we'll just call it warrant. All right, warrant. I won't use the full phrase because I want to make sure that rhetoric doesn't get too hot. But what I mean to say is figuratively. The more they come out, this Shaun King saying no peace. Please share that tweet. Please let everyone know what they're saying. When they come to your neighborhood and they scream, wake up, mother effer, wake up. No justice, no sleep. When they threaten to burn down residential buildings with people sleeping inside, they did that like a week ago. And then Shaun King says, no peace. You earned this. Good. Okay, fine. Then you watching need to make sure everybody knows that's what they're saying. So speak up and say, no way. Now, I don't want them coming to my house. They claim I earned this. Nah, they're insane. This country is built upon reform. We have done better and better every step of the way. And things are getting better. They're getting better and better. You know what you got to do? I'll tell you this. Go watch the movie Nightcrawler. I just watched it the other night. Absolutely amazing. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal. Nightcrawler is about it's about a night crawl. Night crawling is when journalists go out late at night and chase down crime and accidents, and they try and film it to sell to news outlets. It's about a man who goes to a news outlet. He finds a way to make some money, and you really got to see it. When the people in these newsrooms say, I don't care about what people need to know, if it bleeds, it leads. That's what they do. They love to show it. It's what media is creating. So then you get endless stories about police brutality, even though crime is going down. Now, hold on. Since the riot started, violent crime has been going up, but that may be due to defund the police. You see, for the longest time, violent crime was actually going down. And then they started saying defund the police. And then in New York, they took away their anti-crime unit. Police have been completely demoralized and crime is going back up. I know these news outlets love it. They love it. If it bleeds, it leads. They love it. So when Shaun King comes out and says, no peace, mayhem, you deserved it, and his followers say, tear it down, and he retweets them, you know the media companies are laughing. You know that when Donald Trump is doing well in the battleground polls, the media is secretly laughing, saying, we're going to make so much money off the next 4 years of destroying everything around us. Here's what we need. Calm and reasonable debate, discussions, and reform. That's what we need. I don't think we're going to get it because it's the left that doesn't want it. They don't. Don't get me wrong. The right is being benefited too because it's proving them right about the left and they can use it. But the left wants the violence, and we literally have on Twitter, they're organizing. You actually have Shaun King saying straight up, 100%. But I'll tell you what, if this continues, I believe we will see opposition continue to increase. And this could result in a major landslide for Donald Trump. I want to do one quick thing. First of all, among females, support for Black Lives Matter is 56% with 31% opposing. Donald Trump says that he's going to win the suburban housewife vote. Maybe. Let's take a look at white females. You see, with general females, support is very high, but when you do white females, it is comparable. It's actually more opposition than the nationwide average. And if you get rid of females and just look at white voters, 46% oppose. Now, here's what you need to consider. White voting bloc, it's the biggest voting bloc, and 46% oppose. So Trump very well may win back the suburbs. The Republicans may sweep. I think so, but I don't know. I think it'd be silly to speculate, but I'll just tell you this. When you see the ever increasing opposition to Black Lives Matter because of the violence, while it may be bad that we're seeing these riots and things seem to be getting worse, the light at the end of the tunnel may be those who go vote. They'll go vote. They'll vote in people who will actually solve these problems. Donald Trump's new platform, he announced his agenda straight up. This may be the light at the end of the tunnel. But I'll also say it may wake people up and activate them. No longer will people sit around and ignore the problems of their own communities. So we may see things getting bad, but ultimately it may work out better for all of us in the end. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel from this one. Go check it out, and I will see you all then.